Well, it is that time of the month again. Have to tell you about the latest example of on-campus absurdity. This one has to be a new low. Takes place at Columbia University, where the student council at the school recently voted to pass a pilot project that would give students free tampons. Now, obviously, universities are very concerned about the sexual health and well-being of their students, and obviously students love getting free things, so it's not exactly surprising that tampons would be the next source of this battle. In fact, after a program had previously ended wherein students could go to the sexual health center and get them out of a bowl, the program ended, by the way, because not enough people were doing it. Some students were outraged. They raised a stink and they said to the school that they must pay for the tampons of students. There was actually a campaign that was led. In one particular case, a student wrote an op-ed in the school's newspaper, the Columbia Spectator, and in the op-ed she wrote, "Our periods should be free, period." But here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. You see, the next civil rights battle that the school has taken upon itself to solve is not just about whether students should have access to free tampons, but whether male students should have access to free tampons. This is actually true. The Columbia University program, where they're now going to put tampons in washrooms, also includes gender-neutral washrooms and male washrooms. The reason? Well, let me just give it to you in the words of two of the women that were actually campaigning for this change. Gender non-conforming and trans masculine students already must go through the potentially dysphoric experience of getting their period. We should be at least giving them a safe space, both emotionally and economically, to receive sanitary products. They're talking about men who have periods here. They're talking about menstruators, apparently. This is the new group that we can probably add to the ever-growing list of genders. And the idea that giving out free tampons is helping people with economic disadvantage is one that I find a little bit ridiculous, given that the school's own numbers acknowledge that in this entire semester, a little over 600 tampons were actually distributed from the school's sexual health centers. So the need to have them in every washroom, certainly not male washrooms. Now, when we look at numbers, we know that about 700,000 people across the U.S., 0.3%, are trans. If you take out the number of people in that group who are women, trans women, who are actually men, I know it gets very confusing, we're looking at a fraction, a tiny, tiny fraction of the Brown University population that are probably going to be affected by this as men who are getting periods. Now, I don't want to rag on the school for doing something that they probably felt they had to do, because after all, they don't want to be seen as transphobic or anti-man or anti-man who are having a period. I know it gets very confusing to keep up with this. But the worst part is Columbia University is an Ivy League school. And it is not the first school to deal with this. In fact, in September, Brown University went through something very similar, also putting free tampons in male washrooms to deal with men who are having periods, who aren't actually men at all, but you're not allowed to say that at Brown University. You're also not allowed to say it at Columbia University. In fact, right about now, it seems like you're not allowed to say it anywhere. Now, this is the bloody truth here, folks. We have to be talking about this because there is a reason that these schools are doing it. They feel that anytime one student raises an objection that, oh well, it's going to be transphobic if we don't do it. But this is also where people are supposedly getting educated. We see diversity becoming the language of the day at these campuses, diversity of any kind, except for, of course, intellectual diversity. Look at what's happening at the University of Toronto. Jordan Peterson dares to question this, and he becomes public enemy number one in the campus community. Quite frankly, Columbia and Brown could use a Jordan Peterson right now. In fact, we all could. For the Rebel.media, I'm Andrew Lawton. There is one place where you can be guaranteed to get someone who is going to fight against all this nonsense, and that's at the Rebel.media. Check out, get lots of great content there, especially in the premium section, things you won't see anywhere else, only at the Rebel.media.